Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're diving into a friendship that's really captured the imagination for centuries. David and Jonathan from the Bible.
Yeah, it's a story that's been told and retold, and, it's easy to see why.
Yeah. The sources that you've shared, they really paint this bond as like intense loyalty,
Yeah.
right? Total selflessness. And I have to say, going through them, I was struck by how much more there is to this than, just calling it a bromance or something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a story that's captivated people for, like, I don't even know, millennia.
Right.
And what's really interesting about it, I think, is that it's not just sort of this feel-good tale.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It really pushes us to think about friendship.
Yeah.
It pushes us to think about faith and what it means to commit to something when the stakes are, like, really high.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to unpack today.
Yeah.
We're not just retelling the story, we're going deep into WHY. It resonates so much with people, even today.
Totally.
What can we all take away from it? What can we learn from it?
Yeah, it makes you think about your own loyalties, right? How do we prioritize relationships, especially when we're faced with tough choices?
Okay, so one of the first things that jumped out at me, it was just how intense Jonathan's love for David was.
Uh,
The sources actually use this phrase, Jonathan loved David as his own soul.
yeah,
I mean, isn't that incredible?
yeah, it's a powerful statement. I think it speaks to this depth of connection that goes way beyond just a casual, like, friendship.
Right.
Like, it almost suggests a bond at the level of the soul,
It's like their identities were almost merging in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't just talk. Jonathan literally gave David his royal robe, his
Yeah.
armor, his sword, his bow and belt. I mean, all these symbols of his status and his claim to the throne. I was blown away by that. Those are serious times. Succession wasn't, a light thing back then.
No, absolutely. In that era, power was everything.
Totally.
And to give away those items was a radical act. Like, it was almost symbolically saying, I'm relinquishing my claim to the throne.
It makes you wonder, was this like a normal thing back then? Did people just give away their claim to power so easily?
Not at all. In those days, a king's eldest son, he was, like, divinely appointed.
Mm.
To step aside was, like, basically unheard of.
Wow.
And it says a lot about Jonathan's character and his belief that a higher purpose, like God's will, was at play.
Wow, that really puts things into perspective. He wasn't just like being a good friend, he was going against all these norms and expectations.
Yes.
He was making a huge statement.
Exactly. And this is where their covenant comes in.
Okay.
They formalized their bond,
Yeah.
promised to support and protect each other no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't like a casual agreement. It was a spiritual pact.
It was a serious commitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're saying that their covenant was more than just a friendship agreement, like a sacred vow almost?
Exactly. It carried deep significance in their culture and really reflects the importance they put on their bond. And then Jonathan proves his loyalty over and over again, even defying his own father, King Saul, to protect David.
That's right. And that's where things start to get really interesting. Because, Saul, he turns against David and wants him dead.
Yeah.
Jonathan was literally risking his life to protect his friend. Didn't this put him in a really precarious position? I mean, defying the king, your own father, can't imagine that was easy.
No, absolutely not. And this is where I think we see the real depth of Jonathan's love and loyalty.
Yeah.
He was willing to risk everything, his position, his safety, even his family,
Wow.
to honor his commitment to David. And it makes you wonder, too, what kind of pressure was this putting on David?
Right.
Because after all, he was the reason Jonathan was in such a difficult spot.
That's such a good point. It couldn't have been easy for David knowing that Jonathan was risking so much for him. Their friendship wasn't just like, sunshine and roses. It was full of danger. It was full of sacrifice on both sides.
Exactly. And this leads us to what's even more remarkable about Jonathan, his willingness to give up his throne.
Yeah.
We often talk about Jonathan's sacrifice,
Sure.
but let's not forget, this was his birthright,
Right.
his inheritance,
His legacy.
his legacy.
Sure.
To willingly step aside takes, like, an incredible amount of humility
Yeah.
and selflessness.
He was essentially saying, I see God's plan and I'm willing to put my own ambition aside
Yeah.
to support it. It makes you think, like, how do we view success and ambition today?
Right.
Are we willing to let go of what we think we deserve for something bigger?
It's a tough question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jonathan's example really challenges us to examine our own motivations,
Yeah.
our priorities.
Now, the sources mention that Jonathan fully accepted David as God's chosen king. There's even this quote where he tells David directly, "You will be king over Israel, and I will be second to you."
Wow.
It makes you wonder, did everyone just accept this? Was there no pushback from others who might have felt entitled to the throne?
That's a really good question, and it's one that I think deserves a lot more exploration.
Yeah.
We tend to focus on the bond between David and Jonathan, but their story is happening in this, like, complex political world.
Oh, totally.
There had to be others vying for power.
Right.
Watching this all unfold with their own ambitions, it really sets the stage for the drama and intrigue that we're going to see later on.
Oh, wow. This is getting good. I can't wait to dive into all that. But before we do, let's take a moment to just think about what we've learned so far. What stands out to you as like really powerful, like really thought-provoking?
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
It really makes you reconsider what loyalty and sacrifice really are.
It's true.
Like, you hold it up and it's a mirror.
Oh, totally.
It reflects back our own values and commitments.
Yeah, you're so right. It makes you think about the people in your life and how far would you go for them.
Right.
Speaking of reflections, the sources also bring up these parallels between this covenant of love and God's love
Oh, yeah.
for humanity. What do you think about that?
It's a big one. It runs right through their whole story. One of the most striking is between Jonathan stepping aside for David and Christ's sacrifice for humanity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Both of those are about giving up something precious for something bigger.
That's powerful. So you're saying that Jonathan gave up like an earthly throne and Christ, in a way, gave up his heavenly glory
Exactly.
to come to earth and sacrifice himself.
Yeah, they both demonstrate this love that puts others first, even when it means giving up everything. It really changes how we see love, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you think about what sacrifices we're willing to make, for the people we love.
Mm.
And it also highlights God's faithfulness, right? Like David stayed committed to Jonathan even after his death. God stays faithful to his promises to us, even when we don't deserve it.
Absolutely. It's this reminder that God's love isn't, like, based on whether we're perfect.
Right.
It's there no matter what.
That's a good thought, especially when things get tough or you feel like you've messed up.
Yeah.
It's like knowing someone's always in your corner.
Exactly. And their story also shows us what covenant love really is,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't just some casual friends forever thing.
Right.
This was a vow, a serious promise.
Yeah, it's interesting how that idea of covenants keeps coming up in the Bible, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
God making these agreements with his people, promising to love and care for them even when they make mistakes.
Yeah. And just like how David and Jonathan's covenant shaped their actions and decisions, our relationship with God should shape how we live too.
Totally.
It's a reminder we're not alone.
We're part of something bigger.
We are. And after Jonathan's death, David still kept his promise.
Oh, yeah. He showed so much kindness to Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son.
Yeah.
That detail always gets to me. It's powerful. That David could have easily seen Mephibosheth as, like, a threat to his power.
Oh, totally. A rival to the throne.
But instead, he chooses compassion and generosity.
Exactly. That's the covenant in action. David could have easily pushed him aside, but he welcomed him, gave him back his grandfather Saul's land, even a place at the king's table.
It's remarkable, especially considering the power dynamics back then.
It shows how much David cared about keeping his word.
It does.
And it reminds us that love is more than just words. It's in the actions.
It's walking the walk.
Yeah, even when it's hard, even when it costs you something.
I think that's so important for all of us to remember.
It is.
It's easy to say we care, but are we really backing it up,
Yeah. Are we willing to take those risks, go that extra mile?
Yeah. David's actions, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be these grand gestures. It can be the everyday choices, those small acts of kindness that build up over time.
Yeah, you're so right. Showing up, being present, it all adds up to something bigger.
It does. It's about being generous and loyal in all our relationships.
We've covered so much, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
I know, right?
But before we get too carried away, let's talk about some key takeaways.
Yeah, let's do it.
What are the most important things we can learn from this friendship?
Well, first of all, true friendship, it's all about selfless love and loyalty.
Right.
It's not about what you get out of it.
Mm.
Jonathan always put David first, even when it meant giving up his own dreams.
Wow.
It's a huge challenge to us, especially in a world that's all about me first.
You're so right. It's about being there for your friends, celebrating their wins, supporting them when things get tough.
Yeah, loving them no matter what.
Absolutely.
And we have to remember to put God's will before our own desires.
Yeah.
Jonathan knew that God had chosen David, so he stepped aside. He gave up his claim to the throne. It's a lesson in trusting in a bigger plan, even when we don't get it.
Letting go of our ego. Right. There's
Yeah.
something bigger happening.
Exactly.
It's about faith.
And humility. And of course, there's the power of covenant love. David never forgot his promise to Jonathan.
Right.
Even after his death, he was incredibly kind to Mephibosheth. It shows the strength of a true promise.
A promise made from the heart.
Yeah, it reminds us that love goes beyond physical separation, beyond death even.
It does.
It inspires us to build those rock-solid relationships.
It was loyalty and commitment.
Exactly. And one last thing. This story isn't just about these two men, right? It's a reflection of God's love for us. Jonathan's sacrifice, David's loyalty, it all points to that bigger love that God has for all of us.
It does.
A love that's always there, that's willing to sacrifice everything. A love that lasts forever.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The story of David and Jonathan really is all about human connection.
Yeah.
It's about faith. It's about love, both human and divine. Man, this deep dive has really been something else. It's crazy how a story from so long ago can still hit us so hard today.
Yeah.
You know?
I know. It shows you how timeless these ideas are. You know, like loyalty, sacrifice, covenant love.
It's true.
They speak to everyone, no matter what, no matter when.
They really do.
They remind us what really matters, you know.
Thinking about David and Jonathan, it's almost like they gave us this, like, guidebook for building real, deep relationships. It makes you think about your own promises, you know? How far would you go for the people you care about?
It's a high bar they set, that's for sure. It makes you look at your own friendships, you know. What would you sacrifice? What promises do you keep? No matter what.
Yeah.
It pushes you to go beyond just, like, surface level stuff.
Right. It's about that deeper connection. And it's not just about friends and family either, right?
Right.
It's about our relationship with God, too. The story reminds us, like, we're in a covenant with him.
Yeah.
It's built on love and grace and just, like, never giving up on each other.
Yeah, just like David was there for Jonathan, God is always there for us.
Right.
No matter what. It's a bond that can't be broken. It's that kind of love.
It's really encouraging, especially when you're going through tough times.
Yeah.
Or you feel like you've, like, totally messed up.
Absolutely.
Knowing that God's always there, that his love is, like, rock solid, it's huge.
It is. And like that covenant between David and Jonathan, our relationship with God, it should impact everything.
It should. Our choices, how we treat people, everything.
Yeah, it's like this invitation to live right, you know,
Totally.
to put love and compassion first, to show God's grace to the world.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with something to think about.
Okay.
How does the story of David and Jonathan make you look at your own relationships differently?
Right. Like maybe it makes you want to reconnect with an old friend or help someone out who needs it, or just tell the people you love how much they mean to you.
Yeah.
Or maybe it makes you think about your relationship with God in a new way.
Right.
Maybe you recommit to walking with him, to letting his love change you.
I hope this deep dive, it sparked something for all of you listening, gave you a new way of seeing things. The power of friendship, loyalty, love.
It's an amazing story.
It is. Thanks for coming along on this journey with us.